Hi, I'm Seamless, and today I'm holding a GoPro with one hand to look at this, which is my new live setup. In a second, I'm going to start messing around with it just to show you kind of what I got is going on as it gets sort of an example demo, and then I'll start talking about what's going on. I'm going to switch hands. Hopefully this works. Oops, wrong button. Ha ha ha, unmute. Drums. Anyway, you get the idea. So, the chain here is this is a sequencer, and it's playing drums. The drum loop you're hearing is basically coming out of that. It is, however, doing one particularly interesting feature that I realized I didn't even have on this whole time, which is this little muted block you can see right there that's being triggered that isn't doing anything because I have the mute on it, which you tap by just boink. That is actually that and one other channel are putting out a sample that is actually just a straight up like you can barely see it, but basically it's a pulse. I cut out a pulse so that I could use it as a trigger to trigger the sequencers, which actually does work hilariously. And this cleverness is a result of me being super lazy because I can't find any of my MIDI cables because this thing does have a MIDI port in the back, among other things. And I do have a MIDI module up there, which could take it and put out BPM because that's what I'm using it for. This guy is essentially going to be the source of time that handles everything here, which makes perfect sense because that means the samples and the sequence can come out of there, and everything else is triggering alongside it so that everything is nice and in sync, which is super important for this kind of stuff. So that's supposed to be what's happening, but because I can't find my MIDI cables, I'm triggering things using like the separate outputs, of which there are 8 of them. Like this thing is pretty intense in that regard, which is handy. So anyway, that guy's making drums, and then coming out here, it's triggering the Stilson hammer, and that's going from the Stilson hammer into the Metropolis. So the thing about the pulse that I use is that like just any old pulse doesn't work straight up out of the box with every like instrument, and it could be to do with the particular kind of outputs not being the right kind of outputs, that kind of thing, but level matters and like polarity matters, and I took a little bit of finagling to get some of those signals to like be interpreted properly. And consistently for that matter, which like if it screws up even one beat, that's kind of the end of the game there because it screws up your whole sequence. But for the time being, it works pretty okay. And so I got the Stilson and the Metropolis running. Stilson is covering the ARP and the big like brass sound. That like you can hear the sidechaining happening now, and the way the sidechaining is working is that that extra output is going into the various extensions to get itself way the hell over here, where it's triggering one of the 4 ADSRs in the the dope for quad ADSR, and then I'm running that into this WMD VCA, which allows you to have polarity flipping, which is pretty cool. It's a bipolar VCA, which most VCAs apparently aren't bipolar. I found that out the hard way when I tried doing ring modulation with just a regular VCA, which you can do, to a certain extent, but it's not one-to-one with what the waveform is doing because some of them are bipolar versus not bipolar. It's a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, so that's going in there just to get that signal to flip around, right, so that it like comes down on something instead of going up. And so then we do use it to create sidechaining. So that all of this, by the way, is coming into this mixer. Like this is coming in here. There's I guess 3 or 4. There's a 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 separate things happening. There's the main base that's coming out of the DPO, which is being triggered by the Metropolis, just doing a regular old base pattern. That's got a whole thing going on. There's actually a sub base coming in here because I am high passing everything in the mixer and then having a separate sub base channel, which is just a side wave coming out of one of these guys. I have that big brassy sounding thing, which is another one of the oscillators, and then I have that ARP sounding thing, which is another one of the oscillators. And then all of those are coming into this the Linux, which is what that's called. It's LINIX. Can you read that? Yeah. And this is basically just a 6x VCA, and 2 of them, I said we were doing 4 things, but 2 of them are actually a stereo pair because I'm using the reverb on the big brass thing, and I'm actually using left and right. And on the mixer, can't see most of it, but on the mixer, the parametric EQ exists here, which is really why I wanted this mixer, because most mixers only have the 3 regular bands, which are fixed band EQs. And that's like, low, medium, high. But like, I really like my 500 hertz cuts, and the default cuts are at like 1K, and you can't change them. So that's what the parameter here is, that this is the mid channel can be changed what frequency it is with that knob, which is super handy because now I can like this is a whole bunch of EQs that I have now, because like there are EQ modules you can get, but that's just just a huge pain in the ass, and ultimately way too expensive to like have like this much like EQ and level functionality like in a Eurorack format, which I definitely tried to find something like that, but for what there is already and doesn't cut it to the functionality required, and what you can get with the functionality required is just way too expensive for what you can just get out of a mixer. So it's just a mixer. I have a crap ton of these little adapters. There's 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch adapters, which, just to get the signal in here. And the signal is just, regular audio at this point, so like it doesn't really matter. I think especially have to worry about, which I definitely thought there was some kind of limitation to that, but nope, it's just straight up regular audio. Everything in here is being routed into the 2 subgroups, which are going out to the compressor and then coming back in on the last channel, which I can then use, to have post control over that. And also the drums are coming in from the sampler all the way behind everything here, coming in on the second to last stereo channel, so that like they're in there. I'm okay with that not having EQ control because the sampler itself has plenty of like all kinds of internal mixing capabilities, so I'm not totally worried about that in terms of control for the set. And like the whole point of this whole thing is that I want to have a setup that I can play live with that does not rely on a computer, or at least a traditional one. Like I don't have to have a laptop, I don't have to have like any of that. I could just go and like everything is working here, which now like I am fully aware that I am trading one set of issues for another, but I'm not really doing this because it's practical. Like I'm not doing this because I think it's a more efficient thing. I just really wanted to have a setup that didn't involve a computer, just because it has nothing to do with what I consider to be good or bad. It's just what I think is awesome. And this actually, I mean, because of things like the Torayas, like this, you can get an MPC to do kind of what this thing does, minus the sequence capabilities. This is what's kind of nice about it. Like a lot of DJ gear actually is integrating sequencing into it now, which is pretty sweet. And the Torayas itself is actually pretty new. It came out this year, and I didn't know about it because I wasn't listening, like looking for that kind of thing. But then when I went to go look for a sampler, it had just come out, and like it has a lot of extremely like important features out of the box versus something like the modern MPC, which is actually a controller, so I can't use it standalone. Like standalone capability is very important, and obviously, all the synthesis stuff here is all by itself, and then just a mixer and a compressor. Though, like, that's a fine. It's a compressor. It's doing the job, but like, it isn't in any way the kind of like fully featured compressor you're going to expect out of even like the most basic of plugins for a DAW, and like while there are interesting capabilities that this particular unit has, like it has automatic release time adjustment to tag release adjustment, which for a model as cheap as it is pretty cool. Like it's neat that like that low end of items in that world actually like are that functionally neat, but like I don't have the kind of control over like how it sounds that I really would want in a live environment. On the other hand, though, like I don't necessarily need to worry about like given the point of this whole setup, I don't necessarily need to worry about like perfect 0 dB super loudness, like because I could be a little bit under 0 dB because like, we can just turn me up in the club, like turn me up in the environment, like and of course actually fun fact. I have a show coming up. I don't have exact information yet, but it'll be in March or April, and it'll be in Boston, Massachusetts, in the United States. And they basically gave me free run of whatever hell I wanted to do, and I decided, well, this is the perfect time to finally get this whole thing set up and see what I can do. So, like, the downside of it is that everything that I'm doing, I have to do live. So, like, this is definitely going to be more of like a jammy kind of experience than a whole lot of planning. Like, I will plan certain things. Like, if, for example, like I wanted to do this exact jam again, I would basically have to like notate the exact path for everything so that I could do it. I could set it up again. And then even doing that, like there'll be little minor differences. But like even though, I mean, this is a very simple patch, so like it wouldn't I say like this drapes of cables everywhere. But like this is actually not that much of a complicated patch in comparison to what I want to do, because I definitely want to do much more further reaching things. And over time, I mean, I did actually order a whole bunch of new modules. I actually got another one of these cases. I'm going to take everything out of that one and put in here because I want to put more things into this one, into the new ones of these, so that among some of the new ones I got is what's called a fader host from the company that makes the Expert Sleepers modules. They're called Expert Sleepers. That company that makes Expert Sleepers modules called Expert Sleepers. Jeez. But they have the fader host, which will allow me to do things like use stuff like launch pads and other MIDI devices, like USB controllers, and output like CV and stuff. And that is tremendous because that means I can have direct like performance control, because like it's one thing to have knobs and move whatever knobs I want, but like macroing stuff up is somewhat difficult, in the real world. And also just straight up like level control is hard other than like just controlling it directly. And if I want to perform this stuff, I have to have a lot of that. And while there is hardware that facilitates that particular task, it's like again, not super cost effective given the task and given something like the fader host, which lets me just do what I want. And like it's scriptable, it's all scriptings and stuff. Like in that, like I basically had to tell it manually via whatever code it uses to like do what it's going to do for each individual pad. It could do things like put out sequences itself, and also LFOs, and I think even oscillators. I mean, the LFOs are an oscillator, but like a different kind. Just a slow one. Never mind about anything I just said about LFOs. Point being is that it will greatly expand the functionality even what I have here, which will net me like much more complex things that I don't have to like set up all that much all the time. Wee fishbowl effect. Wee woo. So yeah, that's the plans, and like this is all coming up, rather nicely. Nice thing about this case, because that case is just a box. This case actually has a face, and it closes and has like rubber feet, and like it's designed to move around and stuff like that. So like that's why I got both of those, because if I'm gonna move this stuff around, I want to be damn sure that it's gonna stay in there. And that's kind of the set of problems that I mentioned earlier about how I traded one set of problems for another. Is that one of these set of problems for these is that they're kind of fickle to physical movement, so I got to be super careful about moving all this stuff for freaking shows and things. But Boston's only like a 2-hour trip from where I live, so I'm not worried about it. Anyway, I just wanted to show this off and show that I am doing things, and also that this particular thing is kind of ridiculous and requires so much practice and research, and not to be surprised when I don't have a lot of videos for pretty soon, because I do have a show and I'm using that as an excuse to kind of kick this into high gear. But if you have any questions about it, let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff, and as usual, have a nice day.